How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Mardiege. Today is Monday, December the 9th, almost through the entirety of Week 14, and we had another great round of games yesterday to talk about on today's show. We're going to get into the Rams game, of course, with the Buffalo Bills, the highest scoring game of 2024. Of course, we're going to get to Sunday Night Football, where the Chiefs escaped with another narrow victory, as well as talking about Monday Night Football tonight and the Philadelphia Eagles game as well. A lot to dissect on today's show. So we're going to get into it, of course, not without, though, reminding you guys, if you guys want to get involved with anything during the show, whether it be any question you may have, a comment you want to make, or just any opinion you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to do so. Your input and insight always adds a lot to the conversation, and we thrive on your energy and insights, of course. So please don't think twice about getting involved with the show. And if you want to make it absolutely sure that your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that just by using the new Super Chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat. In this way, it guarantees that your message gets on the air. I can see it, and that way I can air it out and talk about it, say it out loud, and we could bring the conversation elsewhere through that and, just add more to the topics or bring up any new topics that you guys might want to add. So again, if you want to get involved with the show, use the Super Chat button and get involved, share what's on your mind, and again, don't be afraid to do so. It's always a great way to get more interaction from you guys, and it's always just adds on to the conversation anyway. So use the new Super Chat feature, get involved that way, and, let us know what's on your mind. So with that being the case now, we can start talking about the action from last night. Before we get into the Rams and Bills game, because that one definitely stole a lot of the headlines, we got to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. And much like all their games have gone this year, through the usual drama-filled 60 minutes, it all came down to one final game-winning kick like they usually do, and the Chiefs won. It hit off of the top upright and went in. The Chiefs won last night 19-17, and the phrase that continues to get said with the Kansas City Chiefs and related to them is that they always find a way. Whenever an organization, any team, any dynasty can get to that point where people just can't explain how they win these games and they just decide to say they just find a way. You think of the Chiefs, obviously, the Patriots, the Celtics now also is another one, the Dodgers, of course, in some defining moments, right, where you think they're out of it, they just always find a way, right? When people just have no explanation, they just have to say that. I think you've reached pretty much the pinnacle of the competition of the sport when people can't even explain how you're winning these games. But there's always something about them, right? There's always something about the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, that gets them through these victories. The Kansas City Chiefs, with their victory last night, won their 9th straight AFC West title with a 19-17 win over the Chargers. Now the Chiefs sit at 12-1 on the year, getting closer to securing the number 1 seed, especially with the Bills' loss yesterday to the Rams that we're going to get to in the next segment. But also on this game, despite missing crucial pieces on offense, the Chargers did almost everything right in last night's game, but the loss, unfortunately, brings them to 8-5 and back down to the 6th seed after, their loss. The Baltimore Ravens didn't play, but just by default, they have a better record. So they move back up to the 5th seed, and the Chargers go down to number 6. But more on this game, on the Chiefs and, just finding a way to win, right? The 2-point victory made it a record 15th straight one-score victories for the Kansas City Chiefs. Going back to last year, that's an NFL record, and, I think just this game alone, or this season, they're 10-0 in one-score games. And that prompts the question, right? Could you imagine what they would be if a couple or most of these one-score games didn't go their way, what their record would be? I mean, we could speculate and overanalyze it, but the fact is that it's not that way, right? They've won all of them for a good reason, right? And, I think they're a deserved 12-1 because if you could do it constantly, if you haven't lost and you've gone through it 10 times, at what point are we going to stop calling it lucky? You know what I mean? Like, if you do it maybe 3 times, 4 times, or something like that, but they've done it double-digit times, there's got to be like a limit, right, where you can just stop calling it luck. But again, it goes back to, the reason that everybody gives, right? They just find a way. People don't want to admit that the Chiefs are, just this good, I guess, but it's hard to argue with a 12-1 record and just always finding a way to win these one-score games. But it definitely didn't come without any struggle because, once again, Patrick Mahomes was sacked and was under duress. For most of the night, he was sacked 3 times. He has been sacked 13 times over the last 3 games, which is the most in any 3-game stretch of his career. And he was also hit 13 times last night as well. So that's obviously the biggest concern, right? You keep winning these games, but also, like, there comes a point in time where we have to stop calling it luck. There has to come a point in time where the Chiefs have to stop allowing so many hits on Patrick because you don't want to you don't want to like put it out there, but taking so many hits, the season is long. They're in it for the long term. So you need Patrick as healthy as possible. You can't bring him into the playoffs all battered and bruised. So that is something that still remains the biggest concern, even though, again, they keep getting these victories. And, Patrick had a decent day, 210 yards and a touchdown. Isaiah Pacheco is slowly getting back into the groove of things, 55 rushing yards for him on 14 carries. And Travis Kelce led all receivers with 45 receiving yards, and DeAndre Hopkins was the only guy that scored a touchdown in last night's game. It was a touchdown followed up by a lot of field goals. So that's what the story was for the Kansas City Chiefs. But on the other side, Justin Herbert did pretty much all that he could physically and, just as the leader of this team to try and win this game. It's kind of hard to pinpoint things that they did wrong because, other than starting slow and, getting off to a pretty rough start, everything else pretty much went as they would have liked to. But, in the end, their defense would have liked to get the Chiefs off the field, obviously, right? But he finished with 213 yards. Gus Edwards scored one of 2 touchdowns that the Chargers had. He scored a rushing touchdown, and the receiving touchdown went to Darius Davis as well. Or actually, no, went to, my mistake, Quentin Johnson in the second half. So Joshua Palmer also led all receivers with 78 receiving yards. But in the end, again, the Chiefs found a way to get it out of this game just by winning by 2 points. And really, if you look at how this game kind of broke down, the Chiefs, led at first 3-0 through a field goal, but then the game kind of stalled out a little bit. There was 5 punts combined by both of them until the Chiefs tacked on another field goal, and still it was 6-0. And Kansas City was the only one to score in the first half, right? Because they were up 6-0, and then right before halftime they went up 13-0 through that one touchdown, like I said. So already, it's not great. We mentioned that slow start by the Chargers, but it's not out of reach, definitely. So there's still an opening there. And the Chargers took full advantage of that optimism in the second half when they finally got on the board through a touchdown. Now they cut the lead in half pretty much 13-7. Then they forced Kansas City to punt, and the Chargers right away scored again, and they took the lead 14-13. So now a completely different game, right? It's changed the whole dynamic of this game with how the Chargers approached the second half and how hot they got started in the second half as well. Then, after both teams exchanged the field goal, the Chargers still led 16-17, but like we talked about before, the Kansas City Chiefs did a phenomenal job of holding the ball for the last, I want to say, like 4 minutes of this game to shut the door completely on the Chargers by putting together a 14-play, 47-yard drive to ultimately kick the game-winning field goal in the end, right? During that drive, Mahomes did the typical Mahomes things. He had a pass in there that he kind of jumped up in the air and threw it for a first down to Xavier Worthy. He extended the play a couple times, the most crucial one coming to Travis Kelce that got them that crucial first down, like I said there, in the red zone. And, the the criticism on top of just the fact that Patrick gets hit a lot is the fact that, those explosive plays where Mahomes just chucks it like 50 yards down the field, Kelsey gets wide open down the middle of the field as well, aren't there. But I think the biggest virtue that the Chiefs bring is the fact that they're able to just be so adaptive and just shapeshift into whatever is needed for whatever circumstance, whatever season. And this season, they've had to put together, methodical drives, right? They don't make a fuss about it. They don't talk to the media or say like, oh yeah, we're just not ourselves. We got to find ourselves. They just say, all right, we're not getting explosive plays. We'll just go the long way, and we're going to do it methodically. They lead the NFL in 10-plus play drives thus far, and it's gotten them this far, and I think that's a credit to them, a credit to how they're able, to again be so adaptive to their personnel and what the game requires, which makes them, I think, just at a different level than everybody else. Forever Eagles, crazy people think Chiefs, they're overrated. They go on a cruise into I mean, it's hard because you look at the close games and then you look at them as the number one seed. The only game they lost this year was in Buffalo. So you'd think if maybe somebody would have snuck in and, taken the number one seed from them, it would have been, a way to kind of expose them, right? But they're just going to probably win the rest of these games, if not maybe lose one. But I think the Bills really had an opportunity to go by losing to the Rams. Not an easy game, but still, they really looked like they had the best chance to kind of take that number one seed from them. And it sucks for everybody else that the playoffs are going to go through Arrowhead because, they win all these close games. But now that they're at home, they have the crowd on their side and everything. It makes it, just like so demoralizing, right? Like, do we have to go into Arrowhead and try to beat this team that doesn't lose close games, right? It's going to be tough, but it was always going to be tough, right? You were always going to have to beat Mahomes, and it's no different this year. But we mentioned the Buffalo Bills in there, and we're going to get to their game because their game was not like this game. Their game put up a lot more points than this Chiefs and Chargers game. This Rams game with the Buffalo Bills was arguably the best one of the year. So we're going to get into it, break it down, talk about the Bills' run defense, the Rams' offense and how explosive it was, and the number one seed as well in regards to the Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. That is coming up right after this break. Don't go anywhere.